Okay, should be on now. Feeling connected with the mics here for today's topic. Just take a moment, close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Enjoy yourself. It's a beautiful day wherever you are, whoever you are. There's a connection in the heart that really says everything. It's hard to talk about it because it's a feeling state. It's surrounded by silence of the mind. It's been my experience that when you take that one moment to surrender your outer shell, your outer self, to really make that barrier transparent, almost like a membrane where things can come and go freely, and an interchange between myself, the world, vulnerability, a willingness to change and shift and grow depending on what I encounter and connect with. In that feeling emotional, deep, ocean wave state. To me that says a lot about connection. And back to talk about connection is Maya Adjani, and she spoke about nourishment a couple of days ago. And I experience Maya as somebody who throws herself very deeply and naturally into connection. In fact, so naturally that I've witnessed her try and figure out how to talk about it because it's so close to home for her. So take another moment and close your eyes. A couple more deep breaths in and out. Connection is really all about the love that's inside us. It's about feeling secure enough in the state of being human, secure enough in our source of nourishment to be able to allow ourselves to experience duality in a positive way, and in that duality throw yourself in almost to the tumbling of connection in the world, whether it feels good or not, to stay in that connection. So take a moment and just take a few deep breaths. Consider that for yourselves.
I invite you to make a commitment to yourself for this day, to be willing to completely disarm your heart, to let go of the need to control who and what comes in and who and what goes out. Take a moment to offer that gift to yourself right here and now. Take a breath into that willingness. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Connection. Connection is something that we all yearn for from the time that we are in the womb with our mothers. We're floating in this spaciousness, and our survival depends completely on the nourishment that we receive from our mother, from this innate connection to her. Everything she feels, everything she eats, everywhere she goes, we experience that on some level. And as people, we go through life once we're born, slowly taking on an identity that is seemingly separate from that floating state of surrender, where we're just receiving whatever comes, whatever nourishment is offered, we take that in. And so at some point the sense of separation, of I'm separate from life, and I have this unique identity, comes into play. And yesterday, Heather Ash spoke about duality, and I love how she framed duality. And just to recap on that, she was talking about the positive form of duality, where, let's say we're a little baby and we realize we have toes suddenly, and how incredible that is. Whoa, I have toes and I can move them around. How cool is that? And suddenly there's this joy, this great joy in being separate, in having this body that can express in the world and move around and interact with others. So that's the positive form of duality. That's really the essence of duality. That's really the awakened view of duality. Wow, you have a separate form that's unique. No one else has that form but you. From birth to death, there will be no one else like you. How beautiful. Well, who are you? This is who I am. Let's play. So that's the positive aspect of duality. And with practice, we can live in that state of appreciation all the time. The negative aspect of duality, or the experience of struggle, is where we have lived for most of our humanity. And the majority of our human population continues to dwell in this state of struggle. Good and bad, right and wrong. That form of duality. What do you believe? Well, this is what I believe. What religion do you practice? oh, it's different than my religion and my point of view. You're wrong. We need to take you out. This is not going to work. This relationship is not going to work out. So, this struggle is reflected in the world around us. And the unique form of struggle that we each individually experience is colored by the way our personality forms itself and the belief structure that we have about who we are and what life is and what life isn't. What it means to be a good little boy or a good little girl, and how we should behave in this world and how we should not. It's full of those shoulds and shouldn'ts. And on some level, this structure of personality, of mind, serves a distinct purpose: the survival of our species is in some level dependent on having a personal structure or view to a certain degree. So, primal level. The tribe rejects you. Not a good thing. Suddenly you have no food, no water, and no shelter. That is the most terrifying thing to a human being. That is the biggest fear of all time. If you do not have the tribe, if you do not have the connection to your community, to your family, then you will not be living for very long. This is simply not possible. So everything in us wants to connect and be supported and feel this sense of belonging to the tribe. So that's one of the purposes that structure serves. That's one of the reasons why it's there. Another is those agreements that are very useful. As we talked about yesterday, stopping at a red light. This is a good agreement to have. This is a good cultural understanding. It keeps people safe. And there are others as well that are very useful. And yet, there are those that are really not useful. And we know on a deep level that they're not true. And the first indicator of those agreements not being true is anxiety, fear, and tension that wells within the body-mind. As soon as we experience those symptoms, that's an indicator that we have fallen into a belief structure, an aspect of our personality, our mind structure that is not actually connected to reality. There's no connection there. It's a fear-based sense of duality or separation. So there's that sense of love-based duality, of joy and appreciation and mutual respect, where I'm not any better than anyone else and you're not better than anyone else. There's just this sense of awe and in relating. And then there's that negative or fear-based duality, where there's this constant need to protect myself from life, to create this shell around my whole structure so that it's not bombarded by anything that it doesn't believe, that causes a sense of fear and anxiety and tension. So, my beloved teacher, Don Miguel Ruiz, has a teaching about, and this comes from the Toltec tradition, the smoky mirror. And the way that the smoky mirror works is looking at yourself in a mirror, seeing yourself reflected in a mirror. Whatever arises within your experience when you look into your own eyes, that's the direct reflection of whatever beliefs you have about yourself in life. That's a really quick way of getting in touch with that structure of mind and seeing what's actually happening there. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. With this kind of mirror work, it's not just sitting in front of a physical mirror and looking into your own eyes, but the understanding that all beings, that all life, anything that is arising within our experience is offering us this opportunity to see ourselves. And the smoke in the mirror is that layer that covers our heart, that covers our eyes, that layers our perception and doesn't allow us to see reality as it is. It's that place where we see reality through the structure of the mind, through the structure of our fear-based beliefs. And it's a really scary place to live. It's a place of struggle. And yet it's where most human beings have lived. And so imagine two fear-based structures of mind, aka the ego, trying to connect. So if you see a little boy, let's say he's 4 years old, and he loves his mommy, he loves his daddy, and daddy walks down the street, and he sees him walking down the street, and later on that evening, daddy doesn't come home. And the next day, daddy doesn't come home. And the next day after that, eventually he realizes he's not coming back. Papa's gone. That little soul at that point makes an agreement of some kind around that traumatic experience of one parent no longer being in the picture at all. And that could be everyone who really loves me eventually is going to leave me. And it's not safe. This world is not safe, and it's not safe for me to trust anybody because there's something wrong with me, really. Otherwise, Papa wouldn't have left. There's got to be something wrong. So there's a personality structure. Let's say this little boy grows up and he meets a beautiful young woman who loves him immensely and sees this light within him that just adores him and wants to love wholeheartedly this man. And he thinks it's great and invites her into his life and shares things. But at some point, that deep-seated structure of fear arises. The best possible medicine for these structures of fear is love, unconditional love. And they're meant to bring them up. The light of our awareness, or unconditional love, presence, whatever you want to call it, brings these aspects of separation to the surface in order to bring them into the unconditional love of the heart, in order to integrate them into our totality, so that we can really love more fully, so that we are free of them. And yet what normally happens in relationship is when these aspects of ourself, where we feel separate from life in some way, shape, or form, when they arise, the unconscious reaction is to run away, is to contract around it, is to deny it, and is to protect that aspect of ourselves that we so know ourselves as this unworthy being or this being that never can quite let anyone in or trust life. We know ourselves in that way, then at some point when that arises again within relationship, that tendency of the personality is to flee, is to run. And that will continue to happen again and again and again and again. And we'll continue to miss out on the opportunities to heal those wounds until there's enough awareness and willingness and sincerity and honesty and the courage to see ourselves amidst our limitations, amidst all of the imperfections. Really, they're not imperfections, they're opportunities. And yet that courage and that sincerity, if it's cultivated, if it's nourished enough, then we have the strength to move through those areas of separation and fear. Move through them. There's no moving around them. There's only through. So I'd like you to take a moment just to close your eyes and reflect on one relationship in your life where you have longed to connect with another being, with this person, where everything in you longs for this connection, and yet there's something in the way. There's some place where you are not able to see this person clearly, or they are unable to see you clearly. There's some place where this resistance, this huge amount of fear arises. And just take a moment to look at the dynamic of that connection. And know that even if in this lifetime you are not able to look into one another's eyes and see love being reflected back in both directions with that unarmed heart, that right here in this moment can practice seeing the soul of this being and appreciating this sense of separation, which is actually a gift, an opportunity for you to clarify the lenses of your perception. Whatever fear that arises within you through this connection, through this relationship, what is it actually offering you? What is the gift there? Notice in your heart right now if there is a subtle opening. Doesn't have to be a huge one. So a little softness around that bundle, that pattern of tension. And just take a couple of more breaths into that. And when you're ready, open your eyes again. So that's one tool to reconnect in some way and deepen in connection when you may feel lost in a particular relationship where you long for intimacy, without that person needing to change in any way, without you needing to change in any way. There can be that recognition on a soul level of the gift that is being offered. Just by them being exactly who they are, you being exactly who you are, creates some spaciousness around it. So, Martin Luther King Jr. once said that, he said, "I believe that in the end, the unarmed heart and unconditional love will have the final word in reality." So we've talked about the conditioned mind and how difficult it is to have authentic connection from one conditioned mind to another when there's a lot of smoke on that mirror. And so let's talk about what it looks like when there is deep, authentic connection. What is that? What is that experience of deep, authentic connection? And how is it even possible in this world where everyone has their wound and has their unique way of armoring? And luckily, we all have moments of authentic connection, whether it's with one of our furry children, little dogs or cat, or it's with someone in our family by grace. Luckily, we have these moments of authentic connection that just melt us and remind us that it is possible. It is, in fact, possible to relate from that place of unconditional love. A dear friend of mine was telling me a story recently that relates to connection on a very deep level. When she was pregnant with her second child, a woman who helped raise her was speaking to her shortly after her son, who was 23, was killed in a motorcycle accident. And she knew this young man very well and grew up with this woman raising her and her siblings playing with their siblings, and it was like an extended family. And here she is, pregnant with her second child, and this sweet woman is telling her this very direct message about connection that she learned amidst her grief. And she said, "Don't worry about the dishes piling up in the sink. Don't think about the laundry. Don't worry about vacuuming the house. Every single day, you sit down in front of those children and you play with them, and you play and play and play and play and play and play. That's the most important thing." Now, she said that she cussed a lot more than that. She cussed a lot, which I think is great. But it's such a reminder of, these moments in our life where we just have to drop the armoring. It's like drop the armoring, or be in complete confusion, live in this, imprisoned within this self-judgment that I was never a good mother forever. or drop the armoring around in the self-judgment and get the gift. Really see what is it that life is offering me in this moment. Through this experience, through this being that's standing in front of me, through this challenging situation that's coming up in the workplace every day, where I feel this anxiety, tension, and fear coursing through my body. And instead of running away from it, everything in us really wants to run towards it. And that's why it continues to arise again and again and again. For us to bring the unarmed heart, to see from the clarity of the unarmed heart whatever is coming through in our experience. As Vanessa pointed out so poignantly, this mind creates separation. It isolates. It causes our perception to be cut up into tiny little pieces. You could say that the smoky mirror exists here. This isn't capable of cutting reality up into tiny bite-sized pieces. This is not capable of filtering anything. This is in a state of pure beingness all the time, whether we're judging ourselves or not, whether we are in struggle or we are in relaxation, ease, and openness. So luckily, there's the heart is always beating in our chest, and it's always offering this invitation. It's calling us to bring in any areas of separation into it, to dissolve into this heart. So my encouragement to you is not to be afraid of anything that arises in your experience. Not to be afraid of any of it. Not to be afraid of any of those dark places within you that you're afraid to go to. Trust what your heart has always been asking of you, that you bring the light of your awareness into every single crevice. You shine it into that. Just trust that process, that natural process of opening. It's there for all of us. So, are there any questions? Anything that is coming through your experience in this moment that you'd like to share?
When you spoke the other day about what you spoke about and bridging it to today, it's really about cutting the crap. It's really about cutting all these old patterns out of our life that no longer serve me anymore, and to allow my feelings were coming when you were speaking from the heart out of nowhere, and I embraced that feeling that was happening then. It was okay, and I'm really grateful for this more insights into this. This my heart.
Thank you. So just to repeat that for those of you watching globally, Magdalena just shared with us that she's really grateful for this opportunity and the reminders that we're offering through the 12 elements right now, and that the other day during the nourishment talk that I offered, we were talking about cutting out the patterns of her words were cut out the crap. Really cut out those patterns of dysfunction and return to that raw state of pure feeling and really listen to the emotions that are coming through. And that is just so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Florentine, watching online, she says, commitment has always been difficult for me. Maybe you can say something about that.
So Florentine, watching online, was sharing that commitment has always been difficult for her. And will I speak a little bit about that, about commitment? Okay. So what we aspire to, what we value most dearly, is not reflected in what we think or say or feel. It's reflected in what our action is in the world. Wherever we are placing our attention, our energy, our action, that's the reflection of what we hold most dear and love. So as far as commitment goes, the most important thing to start with is, what do I value? Really, what do I value more than anything? What is my action saying about what I value? Sometimes what we see when we ask that question is that we really value our fear, that it's been all-consuming for so long, that our action, every action, is surrounded from this consciousness of fear to protect ourselves from life in some way. And so we set up everything from every relationship to the way that our home is set up to the work that we do in the world to protect that. And that's just an unconscious behavior that happens. It's nothing personal. But that question of, what do I really value? What do I aspire to? What does my heart really yearn for? Sometimes it's not in alignment with what our action is. So that's something I would ask you to contemplate very deeply, and all of us to contemplate very deeply. Where is our attention? And not from a place of judgment. Judgment is not productive in any way. Judging ourselves. It doesn't support life. Judgment only serves to contract our body and our mind and to dim our curiosity. Sometimes it masquerades as this honesty. You know, I've certainly seen that in myself and others. This brutal honesty. Oh, look, I did that again. I went there in my mind. And even though there's an awareness of, yes, you went there in your mind. You went to that place of duality of right and wrong. But underlying that is this cutting, really unproductive judgment that accompanies it. So ultimately, it's not really supportive to our unfolding and to our awakening and to our returning home to the unarmed heart. From my experience, the most important piece to unarming the heart has been the reflection of, well, first of all, my willingness to ask that question. The willingness to ask, what do I value the most? To get clear about that. And from a very young age, by grace, what I have valued the most is honesty with myself, really wanting to know, who am I? Like really, really wanting to know. Who am I? What am I? What is this? Really, really, really. So there's that. And then the willingness to not know the answer to that. The willingness to move through the confusion that arises around that question. To move through the layers of separation that are there when we ask that question honestly. And lastly, it has been the reflection of all of you. It has been the reflection of every single being in my life who has offered me their unarmed heart. That unarmed heart is the greatest gift that anyone can give you. That unarmed heart, your unarmed heart, is the greatest gift you can give life. And it doesn't mean knowing all the answers. It doesn't mean being perfect. And in fact, the need to be perfect in itself is detrimental and a total illusion. And it comes from that place of denying our limitations and denying all of the aspects of our humanity. But the unarmed heart just says yes. It says, you are welcome. You are safe here. I love you. I honor you. I welcome all of you. Anyone who has brought that invitation to your life is an angel. And there are many of them. A tree can be that invitation. When we really are willing to see the truth, we see that everyone is that invitation. That beyond whatever smoke they have on their mirror or whatever beliefs they have about life, that beneath that is this pure awareness, this pure connection, this pure beingness that is always inviting us in.
Florentine would like to follow up, and she says, how can I be more honest without fear of judgment? Not being afraid of people judging her. How to open up that honesty?
So how to be honest, more honest with ourselves amidst that fear of being judged by others. It takes a lot of courage, Florentine. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to be sincerely 100% honest with ourselves and others. It is the most heroic act, you could say, that we as people will ever do. So, first of all, just to put it out there, you're not the only one who feels afraid of that transparency. Of saying, for example, to someone who in the past you would have felt you needed to have this big protection around and know what's going on and appear as smart and completely at ease and knowing exactly what's going on, having everything organized like 3 months ago. And yet here you are with this awareness of, I'm not willing to do that. I choose honesty. So you're in front of this person where in the past you would have had that mask of the one who has it all together. And yet, what does honesty look like in that situation? Wow. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? To say, I don't have all the answers. I don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or in the next minute from now. I'm not actually in control. And I'm terrified right now of what you're going to think of me. I'm terrified of not having the right answer for you. You may not say that physically, but your honesty within yourself, within your own skin, would be saying that. Wouldn't be trying to jump out of your skin anymore. It's like the willingness to rest in your bones amidst that letting go of the mask, of letting go of the way we have known ourselves. It's like that death of the ego, of the aspect of our fearful self. And it's not comfortable. It's not a comfortable death. It can be very uncomfortable. But it's honest. It's honest. It's the truth. So it's also nourishing us deeply. Nourishing us. It's aligning us in our integrity. And your own personal integrity is the most important aspect of shifting that dynamic of coming into life, into relationship with an agenda and with this viewpoint that is about this big. Seeing all of life from this little perspective. The whole shift in that is the willingness to be in our integrity, the honesty that, oh my God, I don't know who I am really in this situation. I have no idea how to respond. That's the truth. And being willing to be in that quivering where something else can be born. Only within that quivering, that place of surrender, can a true, authentic way of relating arise. So, a big piece of that is remembering that we're not alone in it. That's where the compassion comes in. Every single human being on this planet is in their own way learning to live from their innocence, learning to live from their heart fully. No one has a perfect formula or solution. Knowing that, you can approach a situation where you would normally arm yourself and know that by being in a state of willingness, you become an invitation for that being to come home to their authenticity. You become an invitation for whoever and whatever you're relating to come home to the truth of our being. That we are truly, deeply connected. That we are not alone in our joy, and we are not alone in our suffering. Everyone experiences separation in different flavors and shapes and sizes. So, And that is that reality of pure being that we experience as children. And you might see in the eyes of a child this pure beingness, just aliveness. It's just, there's no shell around it. There's no need for a shell. It's just expressing freely, free expression of life, the joy of being in that duality of life, of this body, the magic of that. We can learn from babies in that way, and yet babies are not self-aware. They're not conscious of their self. And so that's an unconscious being state, this magical unconscious being state. Unfortunately, in our humanity, that unconscious being state usually follows us well into adulthood. And we go into it from birth to death, really. And wrapped around that unconscious being state are all the belief structures and the fear and the just the structures of mind, where we experience the separation. And yet, what the invitation is for all of us at this time is to bring a huge amount of awareness into that beingness. To not only be in a disarmed, unconditionally loving heart, which takes huge courage to be that transparent, but to be there fully aware, fully conscious. Are there any other questions? Yes.
In receiving unconditional love, I need steps to be able to receive. I can't just receive someone that throws out total unconditional love.
Okay.
And
so
that's asking more of a person yet.
Can you tell me more about that need?
I don't trust. So I need steps along the way that assure me of what this is all about.
That you're safe to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Can you remind me your name? Kathleen. So Kathleen just asked this beautiful question, which I think we can all relate to, about trusting unconditional love and being able to trust, to receive fully. And she was saying that she needs steps along the way to take in order to feel safe to receive unconditional love. And that's a real that's a place where we all can connect around that fear of receiving from life, because the past has not been so pretty when we've been in that open state and received. Maybe as a child, someone has taken their love back, withheld love at a pivotal moment when we felt really open and receptive and willing and in our courageous heart. And in that pivotal moment, it's the love is removed, it's taken away. And that can leave a deep scar and a fear of receiving from life and trusting life. And we all experience that on some level. And we're all learning to soften those edges. And it comes back to nourishment, Kathleen. It comes back to nourishment and self-love. Don Miguel has a beautiful quote where he says, "Self-love gives us the power to transform all of the beliefs we have that take our power away and limit the amount of love that we are able to give and receive. It helps us to break all of those agreements with ourselves that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, no one will like me, I can't do it, I'll fail." All of these agreements. Nourishing the body, nourishing the physical body, nourishing the heart, and finding those little places where the light just peeks through, those are key. Giving a huge amount of attention to the little areas where your heart lights up every day. I'm sure, Kathleen, there's some places within your day where your heart softens and you receive something. It comes in. The door is open. Yeah. And what would those be for you, those moments? Music.
Experiencing some emotion that others are experiencing. Nature, animals.
You're connecting to the emotion that you feel from others.
Can I share what some of my steps are?
Yes.
As I learn them.
Yes.
Maybe more. Being listened to before somebody just throws out unconditional love. I can always use acceptance, even though I know that's my job. Those are some right there.
Thank you.
Acceptance with, I see myself as an honest person, so acceptance with my honesty.
Yeah. Those are really important points that Kathleen just shared with me. She was saying that some of the steps that are there for her to receive unconditional love. One is listening. Huge. Listening. Being really listened to. Not just from here, but from here. With all of the senses. That's a gift we can give to ourselves. That's a gift we can give to others. And many people will, as you say, throw unconditional love out there. And yet in some way it doesn't feel sincere to us. And so it's difficult to receive. And usually that's totally impersonal. It's just the way that we've learned to be. And yet a way of deepening in the authentic, true, loving heart is to listen with all of our senses, to open ourselves, because we're not listening from our limited perspective anymore and thinking we know everything before we've even listened to the other person, which is the unconscious way of relating that maybe you've experienced once or twice, maybe a couple of you. So listening with all the senses, we can't control anymore. We have to open to that quivering, unassuming, non-judging spaciousness. We have to access that. In order to really listen, we have to access that space. And that's an invitation for us all to trust more, is listening with all of the senses. Are we really listening? Are we really listening to ourselves? Are we really listening to others? How do we expect someone to trust us? How do we expect ourselves to trust life when we're halfway listening, one ear is shut, one ear is open to only the things you want to hear? It doesn't work so well. And the other step that you were mentioning was nature? The taking in nature?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the edges are softened definitely, and that's been my mainstay in my life.
Yeah.
Is being able to connect with nature,
Mm.
and I feel love that way.
Mm.
Not so sure about people.
Acceptance, you mentioned?
Hmm?
You mentioned acceptance?
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I'm well aware that's my main job, not
Mm-hmm.
someone else's. It's nice to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, nature is such a teacher for me, and I think so many of us, because it doesn't arm itself in any way. It's just this open invitation, this open flower, it's being itself perfectly. There's no question, there's no confusion. And so much of the time in our human experience, there's so much confusion about if it's safe to receive or it's not safe to receive, or if we're really being listened to or not being listened to, or when we can let our guard down, when we can't let our guard down. And the confusion can take up the whole experience. And yet in nature, a tree doesn't have to decide when it's going to drop its leaves. It doesn't have to decide when they're going to become really full and shine and receive the light. The tree is rooted deeply, and so it stands tall and proud, and it's able to simply be in its brilliance. And we all have to choose that for ourselves, regardless of how we're received by the world. We have to choose that deep inside of us. We have to choose to root into the nourishment of the love that exists within us first. And there's so much healing just from that. Letting go of the places where we've kept ourselves separate from life. No one has to even know about this transformation that's happening inside. Maybe it's even better that they don't, right? But inside there's this magical metamorphosis, like a butterfly being born, of this self-love that can be happening. And it doesn't involve anybody else. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It's available with every breath. And it's what we most yearn for. So, seeing nature is a beautiful reflection of our true nature. Hey, if that tree can be so rooted in itself and shine like that, I can do that. I can. And you experience that. Maybe you're not aware of it consciously, but when we look into nature, we experience our true nature. We experience that peace in ourselves. The mirror of nature is mirrored back into us, and we feel that. Oh, right. It's there. It's always been there. Thought I saw another question. Anybody else? Okay. So, my invitation is to continue to let the little openings of unconditional love, the little places where it filters in through music, through nature, through a child's eyes, through the beloved words of a dear friend, through a flower, through anything, through just witnessing the subtle ways life is offering us this opportunity to be in relationship, in true, authentic connection, to fine-tune our awareness, to see those places and say yes to them again and again and again and again. Even if our armoring comes back full force and we look like we're in Lord of the Rings going to battle, that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes we need to have that subtle experience of feeling safe again and to breathe in that. And then we can come out again with the courage of that nourished heart. There's a beautiful song that's, the words are, "I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go." I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. And we can all make that commitment. Maybe the commitment can start from that place of offering to ourselves. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It can be very subtle. It often is. Just the willingness to allow those subtle pieces of light to stream in. And the more that we're aware of them coming in with each breath, the larger that spaciousness is to receive. It naturally happens. Don't have to struggle to make it happen. Just being willing, choosing it, saying, yes, I choose to receive the love of life because I know the love within my own being. I know the purity of the love that exists within me. And I trust that it exists within you, and I trust that it exists within all of life. Yes, I'm willing to connect. Yes, I'm willing to see clearly. Yes, I'm willing to be vulnerable. Yes, I'm willing to be honest with myself. Yes, I'm willing to be awkward and uncomfortable and move through that too. And yes, I'm willing to be an invitation for others to come home to that offering, that love. So there's much to say about connection. And we will close for today. And thank you all so much for joining us today. And many blessings on your journey to saying yes. And may you take all that is being shared here with you into your heart. Let it fuel the courage that you have to disarm that beautiful heart. Let us not forget that vulnerability doesn't have anything to do with weakness, really. Vulnerability is all about courage. So, to your courageous heart, many blessings.